Dance of Shadows. The cramped confines of the Shadow Dancer, a sleek and agile corvette known for its silent runs through the enemy lines, hummed with a quiet tension. Captain Aria Solen leaned over the holomap table, casting strategic glances at the flickering representations of distant stars and nebula. Lieutenant Varro, Solen began, her tone carrying the unmistakable blend of command and camaraderie. What's the latest on the convoy raids? Jax Varro, whose experience was etched in the lines of his face as much as in the medals on his chest, frowned at his datapad. It's a Shadow Fleet, Captain. No doubt about it. They've hit 3 more convoys this week. They're growing bold. The captain's eyes, steely and determined, reflected the map's glow. It's time we cut short their spree. Set a course for the Nebula of Shadows. That's where we'll set our trap. Amid the low murmur of orders being relayed and the subtle whir of the ship preparing for the jump, Specialist Tia Lan, surrounded by a mess of tech and tools, couldn't help but throw in her 2 credits. So, we're diving into the galaxy's most notorious hide-and-seek playground. This'll be fun. Her remark drew a few smirks from the crew, a brief respite from the weight of their mission. Solen allowed a momentary smile before her focus returned to the task at hand. The Shadow Dancer was more than just a ship. It was a shadow among shadows, a blade wielded in the silence. And as they plotted their course into the heart of the nebula, with its unseen threats and hidden dangers, Captain Solen felt a familiar thrill. This mission was not just another sortie, it was a dance on the edge of darkness, a challenge to the very essence of their resolve. The Shadow Dancer leapt through space at Captain Solen's command, its engines humming with contained power. Lieutenant Varro counted down the jump with a steady voice that belied the crew's collective anticipation. Jump in. 3, 2, 1. And with that, they slipped into the swirling mist of the Nebula of Shadows, a realm of hidden dangers and spectral beauty. Among the sleek lines and the advanced tech of the ship, the Phantom Veil device sat. A cube of pulsing energy and complex circuits. Somewhat out of place. It wasn't fully integrated, looking more like an afterthought in the ship's otherwise streamlined efficiency. Yet its purpose was clear, to cloak them in near-perfect invisibility, a technology still shrouded in mystery and potential. Specialist Tia Lan, surrounded by her customary chaos of gadgets and screens, kept one eye on the Phantom Veil's readings. "We're cloaked," she stated, a note of cautious optimism in her voice. The device's inner workings were still a puzzle, its full potential locked behind layers of theory and experimentation. Captain Solen glanced at the device, then back to Tia, her expression unreadable. "Just make sure it keeps us hidden, Tia. We're in uncharted waters here." Her words were a gentle reminder of their reliance on a piece of technology they didn't fully understand, a subtle nod to the fine line they walked between discovery and danger. As the Shadow Dancer ventured further, cloaked in the nebula's embrace, it was a silent ghost ship, moving through space with a cautious grace. The crew, each aware of the gamble they played with the Phantom Veil, remained vigilant, ready to face whatever the nebula concealed. As the Shadow Dancer cut through the Nebula of Shadows, concealed by the Phantom Veil's cloak, an unexpected anomaly disrupted their stealth. Hidden within the nebula's maze of gas and cosmic dust were quantum filament detectors, laid by the Vor'Keth. These devices were fine-tuned to sense the minute disturbances in space-time caused by any ship, cloaked or not, moving through the area. Tia Lan's console flashed with data patterns that didn't belong to the nebula's usual chaos. "Captain, something's off. Looks like we're not as invisible as we thought." Before Captain Solen could fully grasp the situation, the space around them fractured, revealing Vor'Keth fighters that had been cloaked in the nebula's dense gases. The Phantom Veil had shielded them from sight, but it couldn't erase the ripple effect their ship made in the fabric of space. "Battle stations," Solen commanded, her voice steady and clear. The crew of the Shadow Dancer, though taken by surprise, was quick to spring into action. The Vor'Keth's initial assault shook the ship, but it was far from a knockout blow. "Tia, head deeper into the nebula. Use the gas clouds for more cover. Varro, get those ion cannons online. It's time to fight back," Solen directed, her orders crisp in the heart of battle. As the Shadow Dancer darted deeper into the nebula, its crew worked in perfect unison, evading enemy fire and responding with precise volleys from their ion cannons. In moments like these, the ship's advanced technology took a backseat to the raw skill and quick decision-making of the crew steering it through peril. The Shadow Dancer trembled under another relentless assault, the bridge lights dimming with each hit. Captain Solen gripped the command console, her voice steadied despite the chaos. "Report status." Lieutenant Varro, clinging to his station as the ship rocked, responded full. "Hull integrity's compromised, Captain. We've got breaches along the starboard side. Sealants are holding, but it's a temporary fix at best." From the engineering bay over the ship's intercom, Chief Engineer Miko's voice crackled through. "Power's a mess, Captain. Main conductor took a hit. I'm rerouting through backups now. Expect some flickering and... hang on, yes. The phantom veil's glitching, but still online. Barely." Solen nodded grimly, processing the updates. "Navigation, what's our status?" The young navigation officer, a young ensign named Keeley, adjusted her screens frantically. "Partial array functionality only, Captain. Sensors are down to 60%. It's rough navigating through this mess without full data." Tierlan chimed in from her tech station, her tone strained. "And to add to our joy, one of the missile pods is jammed. We're down to ion cannons and prayers if we want to shoot our way out of this." Solen turned to the life support readouts, her brow furrowing deeper. "Life support, give me something good." A steady voice responded. "Oxygen levels holding, Captain. Minor leaks patched. It's tight, but we'll keep breathing." With each report, the picture grew clearer. Shadow Dancer was wounded, but still defiant. Solen surveyed her crew, their faces set with determination despite the dire updates. "All right, team. Let's keep it together long enough to get us out of this nebula. Handle repairs as you can and keep our eyes open. We're not done yet." The Shadow Dancer bucked and weaved through the Nebula of Shadows, its hull scarred by the recent Vor'Keth assault. Captain Aria Solen's eyes were fixed on the navigation screen, her hand steady at the controls despite the adrenaline that coursed through her veins. "Varro, divert all power to the engines. It's now or never," she commanded, her voice calm yet urgent over the sound of sirens and the crew's rapid movements. Lieutenant Varro nodded, his fingers flying over his console to reroute the power. "Diverting now, Captain. Hold tight, everyone." With a skilled flick of the controls, Solen steered the battered corvette behind a massive asteroid, using its bulk as cover from the relentless pursuit. As they slipped into the shadow of the rock, she cut the engines, plunging the ship into near silence. A stark contrast to the chaos moments before. The bridge was bathed in the dim light of emergency panels, the crew holding their breaths. Outside, the nebulous vapours twisted and turned, throwing eerie, shifting silhouettes across the GMAS windows. Time seemed to stretch, each second a test of their cloak and their luck. After what felt like an eternity, but was only a few minutes, Solen finally spoke, her voice breaking the tense silence. "Status report," she asked, quietly, not wanting to break the fragile piece they had found. "Scans show no immediate pursuit, Captain. It looks like we've lost them. For now," Varro replied, his relief palpable but cautious. Captain Solen exhaled slowly, allowing herself a moment of relief before turning to address her visibly fatigued crew. "All right, rotate shifts. I want everyone sharp for when we make our next move. Take an hour. Collect your thoughts and be ready to brainstorm solutions. We're not out of the woods yet." As the crew members quietly dispersed, Tierlan moved towards one of the ship's side GMAS portals. The nebula outside was a tapestry of colours and motion, where gases in hues of neon blue, violent purple, and ghostly white swirled in cosmic eddies. As she watched, the GMAS, engineered for clarity and durability under the harsh conditions of space, bent the nebula's light in curious ways. The refraction created illusions of depth and duplicity. Shadows seemed to double, and lights danced as if mirrored in water. Each movement of the nebula's particles appeared as echoes of themselves, distorted and elongated. The eerie display of light play was mesmerizing, casting multiple ghostly images across Tier's field of vision. Lost in thought, Tier remained at the portal a moment longer, the possibilities unfolding in her mind as vividly as the colours outside. Inspired by the natural artistry of the universe and driven by the pressing need to protect the crew, she turned away from the window, a plan forming, ready to share her breakthrough with Captain Solen. In the quiet of the captain's ready room, Tia stood before Captain Aria Solen, her expression earnest and focused. In her hands she held a datapad, its screen a soft beacon in the dim light. "Captain, I've devised a potential application for the Phantom Veil that we haven't yet explored," Tia began, keeping her tone measured. "It's a bit outside standard protocol, but it could significantly enhance our current tactics." Captain Solen leaned forward, intrigued despite the weight of their predicament. "I'm all ears, Tia. What's your concept?" Tia hesitated for a brief moment, considering her words carefully. "I need to adjust the Veil systems, test a few theories. It's not without risks, but the payoff could be exactly what we need right now." The captain nodded slowly, processing the information. "Proceed with your preparations," she instructed, her voice imbued with a cautious optimism. "We'll review the full data once you're set. Keep this to yourself for the moment." "Absolutely, Captain," Tia acknowledged with a quick nod, a spark of resolve lighting her eyes as she turned to leave. As the door closed behind Tia, Solen remained seated, her gaze drifting to the stars beyond the viewport. The stakes were high, and details of Tia's plan were still under wraps. But, as Solen watched her leave, a faint glimmer of hope sparked within her for the first time since the grim damage reports had rolled in. Tia's bold initiative could potentially steer them through this crisis, a thought that brightened the dim horizon before them. With Captain Solen's nod of approval still resonating in her mind, Tia set off with a sense of purpose. The specifics of her task remained cloaked in secrecy, known only to those directly involved in the modifications of the Phantom Veil. The crew, though busy with their usual duties, sensed a shift in the air, a prelude to something significant. Time seemed to compress as the Shadow Dancer remained hidden within the asteroid field's shadow. Minutes turned into hours as the crew waited in tense anticipation, the silent hum of the ship's engines their only companion. Finally, with the modifications complete but unseen, Captain Solen stood ready at the command deck, her eyes scanning the vast nebula outside. "All hands, it's time," she announced, her voice calm but carrying an undercurrent of resolve. "All stations, brace for action. We move now." Silently, the Shadow Dancer slipped from the shadow of the asteroid, its engines whispering softly against the vast backdrop of the nebula. The ship eased into the colourful expanse, a ghost moving through the cosmic fog. Captain Solen stood firm at the helm, her eyes scanning the vast expanse displayed on the view screen, watching for any sign of the Vor'Keth. The crew held their breath, each member already at their station, waiting for the signal. The nebula around them shimmered with volatile gases and dust, masking their movements as they positioned themselves strategically within the densest part of the cloud. Here, in this moment, they were invisible hunters, waiting, watching. The tension built as minutes passed with no sign of the enemy. Then, a blip on the radar. A signal that the Vor'Keth were closing in, drawn by the residual energy trails the Shadow Dancer had deliberately left before going dark. "Steady," Solen whispered, her hand hovering over the console, ready to initiate Tia's plan at the perfect moment. The crew tensed, understanding that their success hinged on precision and the element of surprise. As the Shadow Dancer lurked silently, concealed within the nebula's swirling gases, Captain Solen's eyes were fixed on the tactical display. With a calm nod to Tia, she signalled the commencement of their deceptive counterattack. Instantly, the Phantom Veil sprang to life. Tia's deft hands adjusted the settings, and within moments, multiple holographic projections of the Shadow Dancer flickered into existence, each darting off in different directions across the nebula. As they moved, the illusions mimicked the signature movements and firing patterns of the real ship. The Vor'Keth, caught off guard by the sudden multiplication of their single target into several, descended into chaos. Their ships, angular and menacing, broke formation, firing sporadically as they chased after the illusions. Each replica responded to the enemy fire, not just by manoeuvring evasively, but also by simulating return fire. From her command chair, Solen watched the enemy's disorientated maneuvers. "Sink the salvos," she instructed tersely. Following her command, the projected ships began firing in staggered intervals, creating the illusion of a coordinated attack from multiple angles. Energy blasts from the phantom ships lit up the nebula. Each shot calculated to miss, but close enough to keep the Vor'Keth on edge. As the real Shadow Dancer positioned itself strategically, its cannons aligned on the enemy's flagship. "Fire," Solen commanded. True to her order, the Shadow Dancer unleashed its payload simultaneously with the final salvos from its ghostly doubles. The salvo from the real ship struck true, hitting the Vor'Keth flagship squarely, while the other blasts from the illusions added to the confusion, seeming to come from all directions. The impact on the Vor'Keth flagship was devastating, crippling its propulsion and scattering its escorts as they tried to locate the source of the real attack. The enemy fleet, now in disarray and unable to determine the origin of the firing, faltered, providing the Shadow Dancer and its crew a significant tactical advantage. The bridge of the Shadow Dancer was charged with an intense focus as they observed the effects of their strategy unfold. The crew's coordination had turned Tyr's ingenious plan into a resounding success, disorienting a superior enemy force and striking a critical blow when they least expected it. As the Shadow Dancer prepared for its daring maneuver, Captain Solen recalled the pivotal meeting that had set their current course of action into motion. Inside the cramped but efficient space of the Shadow Dancer's tech lab, not long before the ship slipped behind the asteroid, Tyr stood beside a large display, the schematics of the Phantom Veil sprawling across the screen. Captain Solen had just entered, her presence commanding, yet curious. Tyr turned to face her, a flicker of excitement in her eyes. "Captain, I think we found a way to amplify the Veil's capabilities." Solen crossed her arms, her gaze fixed on the display. "Show me what you've got, Tyr." "Right," Tyr began, tapping into the console to bring up her modifications. "Here's our standard cloaking setup." She pointed to the baseline model on the screen, then swiped to reveal a new complex layer of code and circuit diagrams. "And here's what I propose. We extend the Veil to not only hide us, but to project multiple decoys, like this." She initiated a simulation, and the screen came alive with multiple images of the Shadow Dancer maneuvering through space. Solen leaned in, analysing the display. "How stable are these projections? Can they withstand enemy fire without dissipating immediately?" "They can. I've adjusted the energy distribution to create a sustained projection. Each decoy can absorb a few hits before fading, giving us a significant tactical advantage." Tyr's hands moved with assurance over the controls, fine-tuning the parameters as she spoke. "And the power draw?" Solen's voice was cautious, aware of their limited resource. "It's higher, but manageable. We'll divert power from non-essential systems during the operation. It should give us enough juice to maintain the roofs for as long as we need to get the upper hand." Tyr's confidence was obvious. Solen considered the risks and the innovative approach. After a moment she nodded firmly. "Do it. It's a bold strategy, Tyr, but it might just be the edge we need." Captain Solen's thoughts were abruptly shattered by an energy blast that rocked the Shadow Dancer. Alarms blared as the ship shuddered, a harsh reminder that the battle was far from a foregone conclusion. She snapped back to the present, her focus narrowing on the immediate threat surrounding them in the nebula. "Fire at will. Target their flagship. Use the confusion to our advantage," Captain Solen commanded, her voice steady, her strategy clear. A volley of torpedoes and laser fire erupted from the Shadow Dancer, each shot calculated with deadly precision. The real ship, masked by its ghostly doubles, manoeuvred into an optimal firing position, unseen. The flagship of the Vor'Keth, overwhelmed by attacks from what seemed like an entire fleet, sustained critical damage to its shields. As the flagship's defences faltered, a final targeted strike from the Shadow Dancer breached its hull, causing a catastrophic failure that rippled through the enemy squadron. Cheers erupted on the bridge as the Vor'Keth ships, leaderless and disoriented, began to retreat. Captain Solen allowed herself a moment to watch the fleeing enemy, a rare smile crossing her lips. "Excellent work, team. Let's finish securing the area and prepare for our return to base." As the nebula gases swirled gently around them in the aftermath, the crew of the Shadow Dancer took a collective breath. absorbing the weight of their victory. For a combination of ingenuity and courage, they had turned the tide, turning an almost certain defeat into a resounding triumph. As the last remnants of the Vor'Keth fleet vanished into the depths of the nebula, a palpable sense of relief washed over the crew of the Shadow Dancer. The bridge, a scene of controlled chaos just moments before, now buzzed with jubilant energy. Captain Aria Solen stepped forward from her command station, her eyes sweeping over her team, each member basking in the glow of their hard-won victory. "Well done, everyone," she announced, her voice resonating with pride. "This was more than just a successful mission. It showed what we're capable of when we innovate and pull together as a team." Cheers filled the bridge as the crew celebrated, their earlier tension replaced by camaraderie and accomplishment. Tia Lan received a particular nod from Solen, who added, "Particular thanks to Specialist Tia for her work with the Veil. Today it saved us and changed the game." Tia, typically reserved, allowed herself a small, proud smile, acknowledging her captain's praise and the nods from her fellow crewmates. Her idea, once a mere seed born from observing the nebula through a GMAS portal, had blossomed into the strategy that disoriented and defeated a formidable foe. After the victorious yet grueling engagement, Captain Aria Solen finally allowed herself to sink into the command chair, her body feeling the weight of every decision and maneuver. The bridge was now calm, contrasting sharply with the chaos that had reigned just hours before. Her crew was busy at their stations, performing the routine tasks that would bring them safely out of enemy territory. But all eyes occasionally drifted to her, their captain, their unspoken pillar of strength. Solen caught the helmsman's gaze, a young officer whose steady handling of the ship had been critical through the nebula's treacherous fields. He waited, expecting the next course of action, ready to follow her command. She offered him a tired smile, one that spoke of relief and a deep, unyielding trust in her crew. With a voice steady and sure, reflective of their earned tranquility and the longing for home, she gave the order. "Take us home."